Hi, mine's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to catch up with just what happened in another hectic period of British political history. It's quite common when people make films of historic events to embellish it, isn't it? You know, with something to stop the audience falling asleep. When the screenwriters get to work on this one, they'll actually have to tone it down because future generations just won't believe it. But it's worth considering just how Labour have deftly moved events along this week with three fairly stunning moves, even though in the end the third wasn't actually needed. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So, breathe. I think things should be a little bit stable for the next few days, not a moment too soon, because I'm in London tomorrow for the Rejoin March. Details in the description below as usual if you're in the vicinity of that there London. So I need to get everything done today for today and tomorrow. But it was all a bit of a rush in the end, wasn't it? You know, the government decided to collapse just before I was having fibre broadband line installed and was going to be without my office for all of yesterday morning. There I was on my laptop trying to keep up with the pugs who didn't seem to appreciate the gravity of what was going on. They weren't quite sure why the rapid collapse of the government meant they couldn't have their ears tickled quite so much. But let's consider how Labour have played an absolute blinder here. So I've said no end of times before that. Yes, the government has to do really badly to lose power, or at least be seen to be doing badly. It's all about perceptions in politics, but the opposition still has work to do to convince the electorate that they represent a better alternative. This is why Labour's prospects in Scotland remain limited. Although Labour are emerging as a credible government across the land, as far as voters are concerned, the SNPs haven't fundamentally cocked things up. It's also why Labour couldn't win in 2019. The Tories weren't popular, and nor was Boris Johnson personally. This idea is popular with the people. He was never popular with the people. His approval rating was very poor for someone who went on to win the majority he did. But Labour hadn't convinced people that their alternative was better. That was the problem. So it's a binary choice for most people. They realise it's a binary choice. So people stuck with the Tories as the lesser of evils. So you need both elements in order to trigger a change of party in government. The party in government have to be perceived to be failing and the opposition perceived to be a better alternative, regardless of the truth of the matter. And Labour have been absolutely stunning this week. They produced three superb moves which created the pressure under which Truss's government was finally shattered. The first was the urgent question this Monday about why the Chancellor was dismissed. This was designed to either smoke Truss out because it was Jeremy Hunt being the public face of the government at this point, or expose her as not being in control. Labour didn't actually care about the answer to the question. We all know why Kwarteng was sacked. Everyone knew that. It was just to get Truss there because, as I discussed earlier this week, it was a question that only the Prime Minister could possibly answer. So sending another minister would show that Truss is either hiding from scrutiny or being held hostage by her own party, because not a single person in the government other than the Prime Minister could possibly answer the question as to why the Prime Minister sacked the Chancellor. And if Truss had turned up, Starmer would have just demolished her as he did in PMQs anyway. As it was, she sent Mordaunt, which highlighted the extent to which Truss was withdrawing from taking the lead on matters. Second, the fracking vote on Wednesday night. Incredibly clever. On the face of it, a motion to debate whether to ban fracking was already a win-win for Labour. If enough Tory rebels supported it, Labour got to drive a motion to ban fracking. Labour would be getting things done from a position of opposition, would be humiliating for Truss and cause infighting in the Tory party. But if the vote was defeated, as indeed it was, handsomely, it would mean lots and lots of Tory MPs had officially backed fracking, even though it's very unpopular with their own voters. Not just the general population, their own Conservative voters. Labour were ready. There are social media posts immediately all over telling local voters that their Tory MP voted in favour of fracking. But it was even better than that. The government sensed the danger, so they threw the kitchen sink at getting their MPs to defeat the motion. But so difficult a task was this that the whips acted with unfettered brutality. Literally, if the allegations of physical bullying are to be believed, literally unfettered brutality. The Speaker announced yesterday morning that the Sergeant-at-Arms, who's the official responsible for security in the House of Commons, will be investigating. Even if nothing ultimately comes of it, it's going to continue to shine a spotlight on the whole affair. Because of the messy tactics used by the Tory whips, there's no chance of the wider public now being unaware. They would have liked it to have just been another opposition motion that doesn't filter through to ordinary voters. They happen all the time. The government defeat them all the time. Most of the public aren't even aware of it. No chance of that now. When people read about the scuffles, they'll want to know what the vote was all about. Why was it so important that it started fights then? Oh, Labour wanted to ban fracking. Oh, well, that's good. My Tory MP is against fracking. What do you mean my Tory MP voted for fracking? I don't approve of that. It precipitated the end of Truss, of course. Being honest, Truss was gone long before this. This latest scandal is not so much nails in the coffin. It was the stake through her heart to make sure she never rose again. And this is permanent. Unless the new Prime Minister wants to reaffirm the manifesto promise to keep fracking off the table, which is possible, they might. But if they don't, those Tory MPs now have their names officially on record as supporting fracking. In fact, there might be a bit of pressure from backbench MPs to get the new Prime Minister to change it, to cancel it out with their own motion. No amount of whining about the whips is going to change the fact that voters see their Tory MPs voted for fracking. Who do you serve? Voters might reasonably ask, us or your whips. And Labour hadn't even finished. Yesterday, as Truss's team were in crisis talks, Labour requested and were granted another urgent question, this time about the sacking of the Home Secretary, or resignation, whatever you want to say. This time wasn't about smoking anyone out, but just poking at the divisions within the Tory party. Neither Truss nor the new Home Secretary Grant Shapps turned up for the question. Stunningly amazing, that wasn't it? I wouldn't have been more surprised. But a junior minister was sent to field it. Of course they were. And what happened next was clearly what Labour had expected. Several Tory MPs sympathetic to Suella Braverman and her Christmas wish to see human misery on a large scale stood up to vent their xenophobia for all to see. Labour knew that the Brexit glue binding together the various factions of the Tory party had all but dissolved. More about that in another video tomorrow maybe. But the point is that the party is no longer united under that banner. For some of them, Brexit's done, so it's no longer worth keeping quiet for. They want to focus on other things. For some of them, it's not done enough, and they can see their real prize slipping away now. And this urgent question brought it all up. Yes, all of these things are the most insane tactical errors on the part of the Conservatives, announcing uncosted budget plans without any groundwork being laid, leading to the markets crashing, supporting fracking when everyone knows there is no benefit and it's politically unpopular, assembling a cabinet of ministers who are aligned with your thinking but have no discipline. If the Tories hadn't made these stupid mistakes, Labour of course wouldn't have been able to pull off any of these moves this week. But the mistakes still needed to be exposed, to be taken advantage of by an opposition that is thinking strategically. This is the difference now. This is why Labour will win the next election come what may. The Conservative Party isn't voluntarily imploding. There were cracks, there were opportunities in 2018 when they got to the sharp end of needing to say what Brexit actually meant. And think about what that fracking motion has done. Up until that point, what was happening is ever since last Friday, moderate Tories were slowly replacing her government. They'd usurped her and they were just slowly... well, let's get rid of the Chancellor. Right, let's get our guy in. Oh, no. A few days later, let's just wait, calm it down. Right, Home Secretary next. Let's get our guy in. Carefully, so to avoid the need for panic. But the fallout from that vote meant that she had to go quickly. That was it. That the whole thing had fallen apart. And now Tory MPs are forced into a potentially messy and rushed leadership contest. They were wanting to act with a bit more decorum, slowly. Not panic anyone. Now it's got to be done in a week. Wouldn't have happened without that pressure from outside. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. I hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, the join button for memberships. And until next time, I'll see you later.